Mr. Warden.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just received here the last few minutes NRHS grants. So I'd like to have that added to the agenda if I could, please.
Sure, can we say that's 5B?
5B, sounds good.
And you said Northumberland?
Yes.
Northumberland correspondence. Okay. Any other additions, omissions, corrections? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, nay. Motion carried. And just remind everyone tonight, we are in masks, so make sure that you speak directly into the mic, and that it's right in front of your mask, so to speak.
Would you give me directions on how to use this when I
That's above my pay grade. Next, we have the approval of the minutes for May 17th, 2021. It's your pleasure, councilors. Moved by Deputy Warden Murray, and seconded by Councilor Butler. Any corrections, omissions in the minutes? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, nay. Motion carried. Next, we'll have the reports. First off, we have our recreation report. Moved by Councilor Palmer.
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Boyles. Any comments, questions concerning the recreation report for the month of May? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, nay. Motion carried. Next, we have the communications report. Month of May.
So move.
Moved by Councilor Boyles. Seconded by Councilor Elliott. Seconded by Councilor Elliott. Any questions or comments on the communications report for the month of May? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, nay. Motion carried. Okay, next we'll have the accounts paid for the month of May. Okay, so moved by Councilor Dewar. Seconded by Warden Parker. Any questions, comments on any of those? Yes, Councilor Water.
Thank you. I'm just wondering, is there any type of an accounting spreadsheet running for the internet project, just so we can follow $223,000 for this month, but we're still paying $40,000 to Lehigh Valley. And so it's a few months back, we had talked about what we were paying in the valley. And I was looking at $20,000 a month. It's over that every month. So it's just going to be any spreadsheet that can follow through the accounting process for the internet project.
We do, and we will share that with you. Like we have one of the portal documents that we have is actually a budget document that shows the various categories and expenses. So we do have that. So we'll share that with you.
Just ask one more question.
Absolutely, Councilor.
At what point does the audit committee get involved in some project of that size? The audit committee is ever just done there on the project.
On an audit, the audit committee would get involved in a project if there was a variance on the expenditure, something like that, or they would review it as part of the overall audit plan at year end. The audit committee would not be involved in the project unless there was a variance in the overall project budget. Then they would, technically the audit committee should review that. But beyond that, the only time they would just see this as part of the annual review of the project or the financial statements, because it would be part of the capital fund there.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilor Palmer?
Just on check number 17314, it's for $63,351.75. Order one of family wellness center. So we pay quarterly, do we? Now, at one time, the deficit was always paid at the end. We paid now upfront.
Yeah, so that was put in place 2 years ago, I think, that we started doing it quarterly. And then there's a yearly adjustment, either positively or negatively.
Yeah, I was going to say, the last quarter, either add or take away from.
Yeah, it's done post-audit. And so the fourth quarter is paid, and then probably actually will pay the first quarter before you get your adjustment to fourth quarter from the previous year.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments for accounts paid for the month of May?
It's Andy here.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, just a question on why is iValley's $44,600 in two separate invoices? Why is that as part of operations, and then why isn't it part of the capital?
It's broken the way it's broken down. It is part of the internet project, but the payments above are electronic payment, not check payment. So
Okay.
in future, they'll all be up there because we've now migrated all payments on that project to an electronic format. So that was just one of the last suppliers to be switched over to a direct banking arrangement.
So we spent last month almost $275,000 on consultants. Is that right?
No, they're not necessarily doing consulting work. There's actual work being, so it's not all consulting fee.
Okay.
So some of it would be in field, like the NCS payments are all actual in field work.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Thompson. Anyone else? Okay, hearing no one, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary-minded, nay. Motion carried. Next, we have the Carl report. Councilor Watt.
Chairperson and Chief Librarian reports from our AGM will be included in this report, and we made it available for you all to read yourselves. Reopening of our libraries is supposed to happen today, June 21st. The Pictou project is continuing. It has been recommended we apply for a green and inclusive fund since the province has not stepped up to assist us with this project. Some programs, although scaled down throughout the years, are still being implemented. They include the Game On, that's your Discover, and your Next Offer. If you need more information, just go to the website to follow through these programs. Take and Make kits are a huge hit with many families, especially during the COVID crisis. And our board has taken the Provincial accessibility framework and adapting it to the wants and needs of our whole community. Staff are reviewing policies covering diversity and inclusion to make sure we reach our points going forward with this policy. And the hope is to bring this information back to the board in the fall. This year proved more than any other that the best resource the library has are its people. Our able staff provide leadership and caring for everyone in this community. I would like to ask Council to send a letter of thanks to Eric and his staff for all the hard work they did to maintain library service during this very difficult time with COVID. And as we begin to reopen and start to discover a new normal, they continue to guide us to much use as we can of the libraries. No matter what was going on, our board was always kept informed, so we knew what Eric and staff were doing, transitioning through this whole process. We certainly appreciate it, and I would like to see Council just thank Eric and staff for that, so we can make that motion. And that's for second. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Watt. So it's a motion to write a letter of thanks to the library. We have a seconder on that.
Second.
Okay, seconded by Councilor Connor. any comments or questions for Councilor Webb or on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary-minded, nay. Motion carried. Okay, next we have the MAP committee. Councilor Webb.
Pictou County Interagency Committee on Family Violence recently submitted letters to government officials calling for a health impact assessment in relation to the Nova Scotia Commission's plans for alcohol home delivery. The Department of Health and Wellness have provided funding for research at Dalhousie University, who was looking at the alcohol-related impacts of COVID-19 pandemic. This research includes some questions related to domestic violence. In lieu of conducting a health impact assessment, unfortunately, they are committed to working with community partners and other stakeholders to ensure that the proper mitigations are in place to prevent alcohol-related harms. Our next steps could be discussing and recommending harm mitigation strategies to prevent alcohol-related harms associated with home delivery for Pictou County. Approximately 80 professionals from across the province attended the Nova Scotia Alcohol Policy Forum on the 18th and 19th. The following WHO recommendations are discussed to reduce alcohol-related harms: enforcing regulations on alcohol advertising, restricting access to alcohol, and implementing volumetric pricing. Our infographic was showcased, and we visit the Cabinet wall to see the positive comments received about that pamphlet. Revisions to the two infographics were completed and approved by the group, and the stakeholder force groups will be conducted over the next several months regarding considerations for the harm reduction checklist. The MAP working group will not meet until September 2020.
Thank you, Councilor Webb. Is there any questions on that? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to MSAM board. Councilor Webb.
We held a board meeting on June 11th, and we did two presentations. The roads committee update, which was presented by Mr. Development and Transportation. I'm unable to release any information presented to us. It is still in the planning stages. But I will say there are concerns with some of the information, and we've been asked for some clarity on some issues. Report from the Affordable Housing Commission by Dr. Ben Thomas. Some of the recommendations which may affect municipalities are recommendation 1, to establish an arm's length independent provincial housing entity, and 2, recognizing housing as a key right in a key strategic sector. 3, modernizing provincial legislation and regulations. 4, developing a long-term housing strategy. That's provincial strategy looking for. Recommendation 8 was reducing regulations and barriers to community development. 9 was to prevent loss of affordable homes. 10 is to expand housing options that meets the needs of seniors and the vulnerable in our society. Recommendation 14 was rental protection, equitable access and better functioning conditions for rental housing. And 15 addressed the specific needs of rural and non-urban communities. They spoke to attainable versus affordable housing and discussed landlord issues. Definitely need more education for landlords and tenants so each understand their responsibilities to each other. After this presentation, it was clear that NSFM should have been at from the start. So now we're going to see where we go from here. We're in the process of signing the final copy of the NSFM Code of Conduct. There is still no word where the Code of Conduct is with the province or municipalities, but we do know that when healthy testing hit its peak, some of the staff in that department were moved to help with the backlog of testing. So they're just getting back to work on their own office, so we should be hearing back on this soon. We passed NSFM policies concerning land acknowledgement, the email policy, reserve policy, and the internal controls and signing authorities. And I've been appointed to the audit committee for the NSFM. There was a discussion around the board subcommittee for upcoming provincial elections. It would be a benefit to have panel discussions and perhaps some type of debate organized by this committee on our behalf. The digital topic discussions are continuing with President Amanda McDougall, and the next one is scheduled for July the 8th at 9 a.m. And just a reminder to all that Mi'kmaq 101, we are all tree people, is coming up this week, June 24th, which is Thursday, from 10 to 11:30 in this high zone. So if you can possibly attend, I do urge you to try to do so. The deadline is actually today for registering, I'm sure it's still on. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Council One. Is there any questions or comments on the MSFM board? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to FCM conference. And again, Council One.
Okay, it was a very different conference this year, but it was jam-packed with great speakers, workshops, a trade show, and much more. I heard all four party leaders, trio, sing, and call. And the theme of the conference was forward, and participants engaged in panel discussions, a virtual trade show, and workshops sharing tools to promote our post-COVID recovery. There were 4 resolutions passed, supporting inter-community passenger bus service, strengthening Canada's hate speech laws, expanding targeted funding for rural and remote homelessness initiatives, and protecting 911 emergency services. The guest speaker at the President's Forum was Lauren Target, who was the Super Bowl NFL champion, and he paused his career with the NFL to work on COVID in Quebec. So you might have heard the story during the crisis. Anyway, Minister Marianne Monzef spoke at a panel discussion on online harassment and discussed ways to better support women's participation in politics. Mayor Mike Savage was elected as chair of the FCM's Big City Winners Caucus, and Jeff Storr from Colchester County was elected as 3rd Vice President. Councillor Lindell Smith from Halifax is a board member. We had a regional caucus meeting in Nova Scotia as well, represented here with Amanda McDougall from CBRM, Christine Bear from Colchester County, and David Mitchell from Bridgewater. I attended a number of the workshops using community data for inclusive recovery, gender equity, priority for everyone, sustainable drivers in the last mile delivery. We had a really good discussion on the change to e-commerce delivery from COVID and how to keep it efficient and keeping climate change in mind, how to deliver that without last mile. This was put on by Canada Post. They discussed reducing the carbon footprint per delivery, reducing traffic and curbside congestion, and reducing carbon footprint and congestion. So another workshop was held on how FCM's programs are empowering smaller communities. This is a project where FCM partners 2 communities, and together they work on solutions to problems they are having together. And there were some really interesting partnerships discussed here. The rural plan area was ending homelessness. This issue is the biggest concern facing communities today. I know we do not seem to discuss that issue at this table, but it is a huge concern across Canada and definitely is here in Nova Scotia. I do know we need better data surrounding this issue, especially for a rural community like ours. And hopefully with the pressure being put on the federal government, we will start to recognize the warning flags in our own communities. Much discussion within this conference centered around the green municipal funding. Overall, it was a really well organized conference, although it was a bit zoomed out at the end of the week. I still prefer the actual face-to-face conference, but I do see much more in virtual conferences, and hopefully we will see a combination of both things to make these conferences work for more municipal leaders. The one thing that has stuck out for me is all the work so many municipalities are doing across Canada and using the resources from FCM. I think we have a huge untapped resource with FCM, and this county could definitely take advantage of some of the initiatives.
Okay, thank you, Council One. Is there any questions or comments on the FCM conference? Okay. All right, thank you, Council One. Next, we'll move on to number 4, municipal service grants. So this was found in our package. Okay, so we'll go by district, if that's okay with everyone. First, we have District 1. Do you want me to go and read them through, or? Okay. So District 1 has a total of $17,840. Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, so moved by Councilor Dewar and seconded by Councilor Butler. Any questions or comments on those municipal service grants for District 1? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary nay, motion carried. Next, we have District 3 with a total of $20,687.50. Okay, moved by Ward Murray, seconded by Councilor Connor. Any questions or comments on those District 3 municipal service grants? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary-minded, nay. Motion carried. District 4, we have $12,080. Okay, so moved by Councillor Elliott,
Second.
seconded by Councillor Parker. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary-minded, nay. Motion carried. Next, we have District 5 in the amount of $80. Moved by Deputy Warden Murray, seconded by Warden Parker. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary-minded, nay. Motion carried. Okay, District 7, amount of $420.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Parker. Seconded by Councillor Boyles. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary-minded, nay. Motion carried. Next, we have District 10, the amount of $16,000. Moved by Councillor Palmer. Seconded by Deputy Warden Murray. Questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary-minded, nay. Motion carried.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Councillor Parker.
I was gonna ask a question, District 7, but it wasn't quick enough.
Sorry.
This is a question, I guess, for Karen or Brian. Why is it that the street light at the carpool parking lot in South Springs is more than 5 times as expensive as some other streetlights? Did you investigate that for me?
I think it's the wattage on it. It's considerably higher wattage, but we'll confirm that with you.
Check that from the police, thank you.
Sorry about that, Councillor Parker. District 11, the amount of
I'll move it.
$7,050, moved by Councillor Dewar.
I have an adjustment I need to make to it. I'll second the motion.
Okay, Councillor Thompson.
For East River Valley Recreation, the amount is $4,000, so the total will be $8,850.
Okay, just to be clear, make sure I heard you, an extra $1,000, so it'll be $4,000 total for East River Valley Recreation?
Correct.
Okay, perfect. So we'll take the amending that, yes, okay, and I assume Councillor Thompson are okay with amending that? So, $8,850. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary-minded, nay. Motion carried. Okay, next we have community announcements. Okay, Councillor Elliott.
I was asked to bring forward the fundraiser at River John School, and the funds will be used to repair the bridge. So we're going to have new location for the farmers market as well, and it's going to be moved to the old River John School, and it will take place on Sundays 10 to 2. And they're looking for vendors, and they want the public to know there'll be entertainment as well. And the lobster dinner is just the support for the fundraiser for the school repair. And it all starts on July 4th, and the meal's 12 to 2. And I think I said that the market's 10 to 2. And it's pre-sold tickets only, and Shelley's number is 351-2981. And Bobby Lee's number is 957-2430. And the cost of the takeout is $25 a plate. And they also wanted you to know that it's strawberry shortcake for dessert with local strawberries with whipped cream. And wanted to say thanks in advance. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Elliott. Sounds delicious. Warden Parker.
Madam Chair, I had a question first on what Councillor Elliott just said.
Yes, very good.
So is the farmer's market moving permanently from the Lismore sheep farm to the River John School, or just for that one day?
No, we were saddened to hear that Lismore Sheep Farms will not be holding the event anymore, just due to they have so much stuff that they're taking care of now. So they declined on having it, which was a big disappointment because they've done a fabulous job. But the River John School has taken over it. Bobby Goodney is the organizer, and it's going to be held at the school from now on until it's announced otherwise.
On Sundays.
Yes.
Thank you for that. I wanted to announce that Viola's Place, the homeless shelter, I sit on that board now, and they're having a sale in there, it's ongoing, of clothing. It's all sorted according to size, it's brand new clothing, it's not used clothing. So it's in the old church that was there, and the ladies have it all organized well and everything, but it's donated by Pictou.
Giant Tiger?
Giant Tiger. Donated by Giant Tiger, because whenever something's taken back to Giant Tiger, nothing goes up for sale, it's taken back. So it's all unused boxes in there, and they wanted to get rid of it. So, Viola place was lucky enough to be the recipient of that. So it's a great place to get, it's not just clothing, it's footwear and some other stuff, but, yeah, I don't know, you have to go on their website or see the times and that type of thing, but, I was there for a meeting the other night, there's a massive amount of stuff there, so at the, whatever point they call it enough, then you're gonna be able to win and fill a bag up for $2. With the children's sizes of all different sizes, and grown-ups, and they're all well divided and everything. I just wanted to mention that to, people here tonight, so they can spread it around perhaps in their community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ward Parker. Any other community announcements? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to 5B, Northumberland Regional High School correspondence, Ward Parker.
Okay, this came in at 5:54, I guess, this evening. It's from Joey Matlock, in our test grades. I don't know if there's some confusion here or not, because I know we did donate to each of the schools for graduation. This is, I'll read this to you. I'm writing to you on behalf of the 2021 Grad Parent Committee. Even though our students are graduating from the Northumberland Regional High School due to current COVID pandemic restrictions, NRHS is unable to be affiliated with the committee. This means there are no funds available from the school to be used for a grad celebration or a building in which to hold an event. Grad Parent Committee is made up of parents with one common goal: to give our beloved grads a safe, COVID-friendly celebration during these trying times, and we need your help. Your donation will bring us closer to achieving our goal and will be appreciated beyond words. Also, we are happy to acknowledge your donation on social media as well as during our celebration, unless you prefer otherwise. I'd like to thank you for considering donating to this worthwhile celebration from the county. These grads have shown true perseverance, patience, adaptability, and strength during this pandemic, and deserve to be celebrated. And just if you have any questions, thank you in advance, Eric Tucker Dowling, Grad Parent Committee. So I wanted to bring it here tonight, I just received like this, because it is, I don't know if these people are aware, I guess, that we did make a donation to each of the high schools, NRHS and North Nova, of $2,000, I think, each for graduation expenses. So I don't know what to do with that. That seems to be coming not from the school, but from this parent committee that's set up to try and create a celebration. In case it said schools are not allowed to take part anyway. So I don't know what we want to do with it. I'm not suggesting anything. I'm just bringing the letter forward and see if anybody has any opinions. If we should respond to it just by simply saying we did donate money and the school level, and can the school forward that money or not? I don't know. Or it says the school's not allowed to be involved in any way, but that's what money was for graduation.
Just to be clear, did they say that in that letter that they're unable to access that money?
No, they just said the school is unable to take part in any way.
Okay,
We sent the money, I think, to the school,
yes,
but it was definitely for graduation.
and we made that clear in the letter. Councilor Wills?
Yeah, I don't know, I was talking to some parents from there that they're trying to do the same thing. And that's when I called Karen and asked Karen about it. Karen said the money's already been sent. She said, you know, the school's got it. Now, the parents are putting this on. The school won't do nothing for them other than they're getting their picture, their diploma, their picture taken, and they got 5 minutes to do that. But the parents are putting together something, they're getting hints on North Nova and getting them out there and going to have a little time for them, you know, I mean, it's a big time in life, and So I think that, you know, maybe we could have our staff look into, talk to the principals of the two schools and just find out, you know, do they realize that money needs to go towards the graduation activities are going to go?
Thank you, Councilor Boyle. Yes, Board Parker.
I just wanted to, I found that line that answers the question that you would ask. It says, this means there are no funds available from the school to be used for a grad program.
Yes, that's what I was asking clarification on.
It's sounding like those funds aren't available. I think what we need to do is to, what else alluded to is to, you know, clarify with the schools that money was meant for graduation. Now, graduation for them might mean something different than it does to the parent grad party. This is for a grad party afterwards. I think maybe some of that $2,000 that we donated went through some of the other costs of the graduation. I don't know, but that's the only way I can see it was clarified is to have our staff contact the two school principals and see what happened to our $2,000.
Thank
I
you.
don't know what else.
Thank you, Board Parker. Councilor Parker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is probably a very sticky wicket. I know that schools, as soon as schools start getting involved, all the various COVID rules kick in. Okay, so that's probably why they're not allowed to be involved in any way. Because if they were, then we wouldn't be allowed to have a gathering, basically. That's my first point. My second point is, traditionally, the funds that have been granted from this body or others, and funds that were raised or charged to graduating students, they went to pay for such as their cap and all the state grant activities, okay, which are sanctions with the school. But we'll call it celebrations that occur afterwards, parties, for want of a better term, they were traditionally not funded by the school. Okay, there's a couple reasons for that. One of them is liability. Some of these parties were pretty wild. We had a good time. Went on most of the night. There was underage consumption of alcohol, probably among other things. And that's partly why the schools have got involved. They can't sanction and support activities that are clearly involving some illegal efforts. So if you're going to help this their effort, I'm not speaking for or against it, we would have to directly fund. They're not going to be able to go back to the school and say, well, what's that $2,000? I'm sure if I spent on something else. But my point is, this has not traditionally been sanctioned or supported by the schools. There's sometimes more than one grad party. There might be one, for example, on the shore somewhere, and there'll be another one in Salt Springs. Not everybody wants to go 25 miles. Or return 25 miles when they're under the influence. And that's why there's often been more than one. Okay, it's a long ways from Hopewell to Thunder. Okay, so it's a complex issue. I guess what I'm trying to get to here. I'm not against supporting it, some amount of funds, but this late date, I think some of them are already falling in front of the principal. Getting their certificate, that's being done every day. Each child, each graduate gets, I believe it's 6 minutes. And during that time, the grandparents and parents come in and get some pictures taken and get a scroll handed to them and a cap stuck on for the pictures and away to go. That's graduation, 2021 stuff. But the celebrations afterwards have traditionally been looked after by parents and graduate students, and they have traditionally not been sanctioned or supported by the school because of liability issues. Okay, so that's what we're up against. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councilor Parker. Councilor Butler.
Madam Chair, I guess I have a question in my mind is, will this activity be following COVID regulations? And if the answer is no, should we be financing an event that's not following the rules.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Butler. Councilor Boyles.
Yeah, just with the, when Council Parker was saying about, money going towards, the craft and stuff, I guess in North Nova, they gotta pay $50 to pay each child, gotta pay $50 for that cap, that out of their own.
Well, for a whole host of expenses.
And then, the 5 minutes, 6 people, and get their picture, and that's it. And I think what their thing is just what we just said, is that 2,000, if we, that we give, why isn't it around, and if the school can't do it, then give it to the parents to put on something, which the restrictions are COVID. I mean, they have to follow COVID, because they're gonna be in big trouble, and they'll be in jail for graduation. But the other thing is the, I guess, Northumberland had taken them all to a show, took those with the Gator or something, and did a little bit with them. But Northumberland's not doing nothing, but as I say, it's I think we should find out where the 2,000 is, and if the money can be given, if some of the money can be given to the parents, why not?
We're going to go to Councilor Connor, then I'll go to Warren. This is both, yeah. Councilor Connor.
I just know that, like, graduation ceremony, it's more than 4 or 6 minutes. There's different little stages that you go through to get your certificates. It's 4 or 6 minutes when you get inside, which is certificate. So, but there's different phases, and it's going on for the next 4 days and going on. However, this is something different. This is we're going to give money for a car. In the past, my daughter graduated last year. We paid money for the activities that they did. I don't think this council should be supported for hard, you know what I mean? Like, it's, as Councilor Parker said, that's why schools don't get involved. If you're getting into a sticky situation, if something goes wrong or something happens, you gotta be very careful. I agree with the ceremonies and things like that to sponsor the schools and everything like that. But when you're actually sponsoring a prom party, it's very difficult. And I think North Nova prom's not until July. They're waiting for the next phase to open up. But they can have 225 people in one gathering, and I think they're having it at the walls. Anyway, that's my side.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Connor. Councilor Webb, did you have your hand up? Yes, go ahead.
Just, I basically agree with Councilor Connor. I think that we made a donation to the school for graduation. If the school wants to spend that money, put stipulation on it. However, I see this is something very different. And I really don't think the council should be supporting party of that nature. I think that's up to the parents and the graduate students. And I'm sorry they've had such a rough opportunity for the last 2 years, but that's important. So, I think we've done our part as far as the council is concerned, providing some type of graduation. I think that's what we should do.
Thank you, Councilor Webb. Deputy Mayor Murray.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Debbie, in fact, right in 15 minutes, myself and wife and daughter putting on a prom party for our 2 grandkids at graduation from Pictou Academy, and we are run by homeschools, by the sub teams, contact parents. We're not doing the shooting. Parents want to put something on. We're doing that. So,
You got the weather on your side. Congratulations to your graduation. Okay, Warden Parker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I tend to agree with what's been said around. I just wanted to bring it forward tonight because it showed up here just as I got here from there. I think in the past, these have been held for a long time. When the no alcohol party started, sponsored by the schools, they immediately had these other parties afterwards. So they went to the no alcohol party one night or whatever, and then it didn't stop the other parties. It's the same as when I was with the school board years ago. You started this no smoking. well, all they did was move the smoking, to a different part, but you're not gonna regulate how people lead their lives, you can try and educate people who I understand the high school. But, no, I think we do our part, by giving it to the schools, and it's up to them, if there's restrictions on where they can put it, but in the past, this is definitely what was mentioned, it has been parents that funded these things. It's really no different because it's COVID. It was always parents that funded, or community associations or whatever that funded these, so it's not that much different. It's just that because they're not having a real official graduation, it'll make it different. But the after parties were always funded by somebody other. And I think it wouldn't be wise expenditure of taxpayer money, I guess, to do it twice. So I support generally what's been said around that probably we shouldn't be. I would like to know though if if we could find out from the schools what our $2,000 comes to, on a year like this. I'm sure they have lots of expenses. Just be nice to know for accountability what the $2,000 went towards.
Okay,
That's it.
Councillor Elliott.
I think we all agree that we're not going to support a party that's outside of the school or not being run by the school. But I do believe that we should find out where the funds are going to go. And I'll put a suggestion forward that we make sure that the funds that were sent in for the grads of 2021 be used over the summer and COVID restrictions are lifted for the grads of 2021.
That's like the word of hope for the wellness center. Something.
Okay, does someone want to make a motion? Gordon Parker.
I'll make a motion that we send a letter back to the committee here that council will not be contributing to the committee to have these, I don't think they use the word party, but fund a graduation ceremony after. And I'd also like to make part of that motion that we request of the high schools for the $2,000 what that money is. We're not asking them to send it to these people.
Okay, we have a second for that motion? Second by Deputy Warden Murray. Any questions or comments? Councillor Boyles.
Sorry, I have to. I really think that some of the stuff said here tonight is really disheartening to me. I don't have a child this time in the school, but it sounds like some of the statements that's made, I don't know, but I think they're really good one there, and I think the first one to see where the money was great, but to turn around and automatically, all this turns off was to turn around and see where that 2,000 went. So that 2,000 is not being used, and the parents are going to put something together. Where does alcohol come into? Alcohol pumps and everything. I mean, we all went through what we ourselves and everything. But we're sort of classing these students as alcoholics. We're turning around and saying, oh, what, the alcohol, you're drunk and drinking and all this, we're going to support it. I don't know where that came from, because I think this family or this community or mothers and fathers and parents organization is trying to give them something so they can go out and have a little time where they can, talk to each other and be saying goodbye. Some of them get to universities or whatever. So I really think we send a bad message on this alcoholic thing, because I don't think that the kids are like that really. I mean, everybody drinks and if they're in schools, it happens, but I think if their parents are there, they're going to be watching that pretty closely.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Boyles. And Warden Parker.
I agree with Councillor Boyles. I don't think that's the message that's coming out of here tonight. The message, I agree. We don't want to label this group or these students as a bunch of drunks or whatever. That's certainly not the message. The message is we gave the money that we usually give to the schools to use for the graduation ceremonies, and if they're prohibited from forwarding that to these people, then so be it. But we've given on behalf of taxpayers to help for the graduation ceremonies, and I don't think we want to be giving again. Once we set that precedent, we will be giving twice every year, but it's not certainly, and I don't think there's anybody around the table that would want to label these parties as but that's not the idea here. It's just that we can't give twice. We've already given once, that the schools can't forward that, and so be it. I sure wouldn't want that in message coming from this council. If we thought that we went to current parties, therefore we give them that option.
All right, I'm gonna call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary-minded, nay. Motion carried. Okay, well, that is the end of our financial services meeting. Thank you. We'll have to call for an adjournment, don't we? Oh, sorry. I'm ahead of myself. Referrals to committee. This is a motion. Sorry, everybody, I got excited there. Okay. Hearing none. Call for adjournment.
So moved.
Moved by Councilor Parker. Seconded by Councilor Elliott. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion carried.
I'll invite the crop service committee meeting to order. I'll pass out, I can't breathe. Just leave it around. Just leave it there. But anyway, it's great to be out in council, I've said that. Because I just didn't like doing that at Microsoft Teams, so I'd rather be here than there. Right, Andy? Not wearing a Montreal Canadian shirt tonight, too. Yeah. Anyway, first we have the approval agenda.
So moved, Darla.
By Darla,
I'll second it.
second by Councilor Joe. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Count on the nay. Count by. Motion carried. Next is approval of minutes of May 17th, 2021.
Seconded, Andy.
Moved by
Let's get in the minutes.
Councilor Butler, and seconded by Councilor Walls. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Count on the nay. Motion carried. You can keep them quiet for a while. Next is the reports. First up is the building inspection report. Moved by Councilor Wyden, seconded by Councilor McKeel. Questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Count nay. Motion carried. Next is the bylaw dog control.
Peter.
Moved by Councilor Walls,
Seconded.
seconded by Councilor McKeel. Questions? Councilor Dave Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've had a couple of communications with our new Director of Public Works Development. And I'll say it's very positive. I'm searching here and I still can't find Maxwell Road on there. All I understand is being worked on. Just a complete breath of fresh air. February or before. No results yet. I don't want to be too excited, but they are actually working on, and I've got a report on Friday. I thought maybe Mr. McDowell, because he wasn't on earlier.
I am here, Councillor.
Yeah.
Apologies. Yeah.
Can you give me an update on the Maxwell Road? A new report?
Yes, sir. And thank you. And thank you, everybody, for the warm welcome in the council meeting as well. I didn't have a chance to speak, but I appreciated the welcome, and I look forward to working with all of you and seeing you in person before long. Excuse me. So yes, Councillor Parker, Maxwell Road is being looked at. A report is being generated. We have had staff out to the site again. So it's just the impending report, which you should receive this week. Our bylaw inspector is back in the office tomorrow, and we will be meeting about that project specifically. And I'd be happy to answer any other questions or provide updates on a number of other items. I know there were some communications as well.
If I may, Mr. Chair, the one that I've been asking about all along is the Hazel Glen, 4471 Gerlock Road. That's been pending demolition for, must be close to a year. Is there anything to report on that?
Yes, Councillor. And sorry, just as a clarification, Maxwell Road, the report was actually due to be completed either Friday or the start of this week. So you will see that coming. With regards to Gerlock Road, our bylaw enforcement officer has made the title search and has visited the site. So we will look forward to having a report and having an update on that title search as well. So that, I believe, is the next step. Happy to receive any feedback and direction though as well further.
Thank you, Mr. McDowell.
Okay. Any other questions? Councilor Watt.
Well, I wonder when you get an update on Birch Lane and Pictou.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Wadden. The report for Birch Lane is set to be also sent to me. It was to be completed either Friday or the start of this week. Again, our bylaw enforcement officer was off today, but we will be meeting about that one as well. But she has visited the site, and the report will be sent to me, I guess now, presumably tomorrow, since it wasn't last Friday. But we will be meeting on that one as well, and we will provide the updated report as well.
Did you say she visited the site since April? Or has it been?
She did visit the site in April, and then unfortunately we were shut down due to COVID. But she had told me on Friday that she would be visiting the site either that day or the start of this week. So I will be able to give you an update tomorrow. And I apologize, I did receive your voicemail, Councillor Wadden, and I sent you a follow-up call, but wasn't able to get through. So I left you a voicemail, but I'd be happy to chat with you about that tomorrow as well once we have that report put together.
Thank you.
Deputy Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Highway 376, 2438, we were property there that was reported in December, and because of the winter, we took dangerous on slightly. I'm getting quite a few calls the last week or so because of the long grass and the state of the house. I just wondered if there's any movement on that property.
Oh, I apologize. I wasn't able to hear what property that was, Councillor.
That was 2438 Highway 376, Foxborough.
2438, I'm sorry, Highway 6?
Highway 376.
Okay, I apologize. I believe we have a report completed for that one as well, but I will follow up and follow up with you as well. I apologize. I hadn't had that a response prepared for that one for this meeting, but I can follow up with you tomorrow if you would like.
Yeah, that'd be great because I'm getting quite a few calls on that weekly, so I'd like to see that move forward if we could. Thank you.
Certainly. Thank you very much.
Anybody else? If not, I have Mr. McDowell. Just the one at 446 Thornton Road. Is there any movement on that?
I have not had any discussion with our bylaw enforcement officer with regards to this one, but I can and I will tomorrow as well. I apologize again. I wasn't prepared to give a response, but I can on that one. But I can provide a follow up tomorrow.
That'd be great. Just that I've been dealing with that property for between 7 and 10 years right now, so it haven't got cleaned up yet. So
sure thing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. There's nothing else. All those in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Am I nay? Motion carried.
Also, that I did not vote nay this month.
You didn't, did you?
Oh, it's progress being
Okay. Next up is the warden's report. Moved by Councilor Gore,
I'll second.
seconded by Councilor Elliott. Okay, any questions? Councilor one?
Two actually, thank you. First one is item 6, the teleconference with the senior executives of NS Power and Mayor Husser. What was involved with that?
If I might, Mr. Chair, I have a bit of a dialogue on that here, just when we include the answers to the questions.
Okay.
It'll be included there, that's one of the ones that I want to speak to here.
Okay, very good. And on the, maybe number 10 as well, the work towards a resolution for the series animals at large. We all get copies of that in emails, but the residents were quite concerned with those animals, so has there been progress made with that?
Yes, there has been quite a bit of progress. There's still some ongoing work with the fencing committee to report, and they can't have a public hearing, so they haven't been able to up until now, but they will finish their investigation and give their results on the addition of the fencing there, but the animals are no longer in that community. So the problem as far as the people were concerned of damage to their properties is gone for now because the animals are no longer there.
Who's responsible for picking up the properties, the owners or the animals? Of course, it is
My understanding that's a civil matter that would be handled between the residents and the owners of pet.
Any other questions? Seeing none? Okay.
I got a couple of things.
Just 1 second.
Sorry, that was just my last minute. Oh, sorry about that, last minute. Number 7, divest Nova Scotia's at divert.
I was gonna mention, we're not getting rid of those.
So was that just an update on something similar to what we have here at council?
In terms of the meeting of divert?
Yes, just about,
It's a lot more involved because I'm on the chair of Pictou Shared Services this time around, it rotates. Therefore, on the regional chairs as well. So the very first meeting of regional chairs, I got put on the Divert Nova Scotia committee as well. So it's representatives from each of the regions across the province. So it deals with, it used to be called RFP, I think it was, Resource Recovery Fund Board. It certainly looks after all of the, I don't know what these places are called, like the one right here, environmental people, yeah. It looks after all of those, but a whole lot of other, they do a lot of good work with, they have a small amount of money that can give some help to efforts to try and help the environment in various ways. But I think they can help us a lot, and I'm following up on this with Earl and his staff. I think they can help us a lot in trying, like what we've been doing with our cleanups and everything, and there's some really good work taking place in each area right now that I think we can sort of copy. But, you know, we've been big on trying to clean up our environment around here, make our dishes look better and stuff. And there's a lot of good stuff going on that I hear at least I heard supposed to be. So I'm going to ask, I'm trying to think of her name right now. Deborah Cyril, I think she's trying to make a presentation to us anyway on the extended producer responsibility, EPR. But perhaps at the same time, she can talk about some of the other things that these Divert Nova Scotia meetings and the regional chairs there's a lot of good information out of them. I'll try and bring some of that over here, but Deborah's really good at presenting. So the one I wanted to talk about tonight is the one that council wasn't asked about. I was requested to go on a teleconference with Mayor Husser from Trenton, and it had to do with the future of the power plant, coal generating or power generating coal fired in Trenton. And so I guess most of us know that the feds a few years ago decided that everybody had to get a coal by 2030, except Nova Scotia. Nova Scotia did an extension in 2040 because we had so much wind power, we were on the wind side. which didn't say, well, a lot of people that we were going to be burning coal and everybody else was done. So this announcement that they told us about that day was that we would not go beyond 2030. Same as everybody else, even though they could go beyond 2030 with federal laws. We will not go beyond 2030, and there's a good possibility that sometime between now and 2030, that they may not be burning any more coal. That was really good news, and I sit on the climate change committee, and if we could not be burning that coal, that would be a big plus for our county. They did point out that right now we have 30% renewables. Our power is generated 30% by renewables. And Muskrat Falls is supposed to kick in this fall. And when that does, we'll have 60% renewables, because that's all hydro power. So when you think of it, it wasn't that long ago we were burning coal for putting our water power. And now we're going to have 60% renewables. But there are big concerns. One was that the price not go up too much if we're trying to go to renewables too fast. The price go up too much for a consumer. Well, we're supposed to be protected by the UARB on that, and that was what they listed as one of the major concerns. And the other is the people that work at that plant. They're trying very hard. I think they're trying to duplicate some of what was done in Mifflin. Mifflin did a very good job in the last 10 to 500 people of trying to help those people as they could. And I think that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to line people up with other jobs. They're trying to find places for them with Nova Scotia Power in different jobs across the province. And they won't be hiring any new people other than on short term as people retire. They also mentioned that I thought it was important to on the numbers. We now have about 600 megawatts coming from wind power in this province. They're expecting within the next very short time, like a couple of years, almost double that from wind. Another 300 to 500 megawatts. So the good thing is we're bringing in our new bylaw to protect people in their homes. And we didn't want to kill the wind power. We just wanted to find a happy medium. But they're predicting a lot more of their energy. So by the time you have Muskrat Falls getting up to 60%, they have almost double wind power. We'll get almost up to 100%. And there's a lot of talk about batteries now, newer type batteries, that they're going to be able to store an awful lot of that energy. The problem's always been that you couldn't have all renewable energy because what if the wind doesn't blow and the sun doesn't jump? So there's a lot of looking into that. So it was very positive, I thought, for this county. Now the mayor of Trenton was quite concerned, are we going to lose a generating station here in Trenton? You know, and they assured us that that wouldn't happen. There's actually two generating stations there now. We go Trenton 5 and Trenton 6. Trenton 5 is a 1969 vintage. That was the year I graduated, so that wasn't yesterday. And the Trenton 6 is a 1991 vintage. So it sounds like Trenton 6 will probably survive, but it will probably be on natural gas. And right now, the pipe that comes there, there is natural gas at power plant, but it's not near big enough. It would have to be a lot bigger pipe come there in order to have natural gas there. And all these things, of course, have to be approved by the UARB and whatnot, but it looks good for Pictou County in terms of we'll have no more dirty coal, hopefully even sooner than 2030. And we'll still have some non-renewables and we have the natural gas. And the one other thing I'll say that they mentioned, and I've heard this before, talk of this, is a main line coming down through Quebec and Brunswick to Nova Scotia, so that we have a backup. If we were to lose, they must have called to lose something else for some reason, and we could also then sell excess power the other way. So we'd have a backup coming down from the hydropower in Quebec. So that's sort of a report on that subject. If anybody's got any questions on that, I can take them before I go on to the other subject.
Any questions? Seeing none? Oh, that's what I'm for.
So my correct understanding is that you're losing one of the steps of generating station in Trenton and possibly the other one will be staying and we're going over to gas in 2030. So
that was the general what I got. The Trenton is still very important for the overall generating because of the situation. In the center of the province, you can't just have power generated here. You need some in the center. So he was quite confident, he wasn't saying before, but quite confident that at least one. He didn't say that one was shut down, but at least one would survive, and it would obviously be the newer one, and it would, most likely be on natural gas, that's for sure.
How many employees do they have there that could possibly be redirected to other jobs?
I'm looking for the number now, I'm not seeing it right now, but I'm almost sure that he said they had 90 employees at the present time.
That's for both.
Yeah, 90 employees, they're just not many will retire or win, I'm not sure, they're gonna gradually wean that down, that's for the whole place. Some of that is coal handling, well, you know, if you're not with coal, then one of those people will be gone for sure, but a fair number of those over that period of time will retire. And they won't rehire permanent positions for there, so they might wean that down to say 50 or 60 by that time, and then try and find places, he mentioned linemen and all kinds of other positions within those for the fire.
Okay, thank you.
Council
It's good news, but, to say when we see it, we'll leave it, but I was just wondering, saying that they're gonna try and do something with their people in the plant. Is there any consideration being done, I don't know if I'm saying this, but I mean, the ones that are working in the open pits and that, you know, a lot of truck drivers, a lot of people working in the open pits and that, is looking at there to help them as well as the ones that work in the plant.
They were certainly talking all their employees, they were, you know, singling out certain ones. They were talking to all the employees, I think the 90 included, you know, all the employees, but they did say that the, you know, the coal part obviously gone, the coal handling part obviously no longer burn coal, but, you know, but some of those people might want to go to land or want to jobs, whatever, you know, and they also said they work very closely with UBW, Union Electrical Union.
Yeah. That's okay.
Thank you very much. My question is, are the employees aware of this as well? They understand this is something that's being communicated to them? And I think it's really great that they're trying to kind of keep up with, I guess, the progressiveness of moving forward to cleaner air and cleaner, I know there's been lots of talk about, it's called fly ash, is that what it's called, Council Walls? Yeah, in the area, so that's great for those residents. There is, Nova Scotia Power is sending around a survey to their customers. I know I got one and I told them, considering renewables and such, so I encourage people, if they get that via email, if they take it. So yes, but I guess the question is the employees aware of what's going on?
No, it sounded like they were very aware, they already had discussions with them, you know, and I'm sure they had discussions with them before they talked about it, because I asked them at the end of the town conference, is any of what you said here today not to be released? And he said, no, everything that you talked about is not to be released. So, I'm pretty sure they talked to us.
Thank you, that's really great to hear. It just seems like sometimes the employees are the last to find out, and it's, I think it's important to, thank you.
Councilor Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 2.5 years ago, or maybe 27 months ago, I was fortunate enough to attend the Smart Energy Conference in Halifax, sponsored among others by NERA. Okay. Almost everything I heard here today, I was very aware of. Okay. And it's a whole lot more. And it's not just about NERA. It's about how our energy production, distribution, and use is going to change. It's going to change very rapidly. And that's good news for people in the Council Boylston. I know it's been near and compared for decades to the coal of this neighborhood. Coal burning, fly ash, and so on, if and when that comes back, and it went on the last 2 years as a smart conference, virtual conference. I do not attend, it's just not my plan at all. But I would strongly recommend that we get an opportunity to attend one of those and be able to see what's happening 10, 15 years out, maybe a lot sooner than that. I mean, for a while I thought electric cars were high in the sky. now it appears that in, hopefully in my lifetime, I'll be able to buy a electric car and use it. Okay, I read today with farm tractors, they expect to go all electric, not that ground. I have trouble figuring out how you're gonna generate 350 horsepower, but they're talking about what they call swarms of little tractors. All programmable, you don't even need anyone to drive it. The future risk is mind-bending. That's a really good conference to bend your mind, or hoping your mind might be a better word. Okay. Just highly recommending it when it comes available being any councillors should avail themselves of that opportunity. Thank you.
Okay, total shift of gears here, talk for a minute about mental health. This council discussed this, how many years ago now, 2 or 3 years, 3 or 4 years ago, and was asked to take it to the mayor's warden group, and did, and the mayor's warden group agreed that, you know, this is an important enough issue in the county that we need to set up an ad hoc committee of the mayor's warden group. So I sat on that for the last 3 years, like I did, along with mayors of New Glasgow and Pictou, Nancy Dix and Jim Ryan. And it kind of died out over COVID some, and we were just having trouble getting any traction, it seemed. And there's several other groups in the county, roundtables and whatnot, that are trying to help with mental health. And everybody in politics, no matter what level it's at, you know, speaks highly of doing something to help the mental health situation in Pictou County. Particularly in Pictou County, we're in worse situation than anywhere in the province, I think. I don't know down the far west end of the province, but anyway, it's a dire situation here. We have no psychiatrists. We didn't the last time I checked. We have no beds, you know, to hold people that really need to be helped. And so we're told over and over that you can go to Truro. If you need any help, you go to Truro. Well, if anybody read the Herald, Herald on Saturday, they'll find out, you know, what's going on in Truro. And his own life, who basically his parents are saying that there wasn't any, they're too busy, too cold, there wasn't any place to Truro. So if they can't handle their own, they can hardly handle ours. And we were told on the committee that we have 6 bids for you folks over here, but if you don't have anybody in them, we're using them. We're telling them. So if somebody from Pictou County goes over, there's not the bids sitting there waiting, you know, they're going to be used and then be allowed in as the pre-bid sometime. So anyway, it just didn't seem to be going very far, so I requested at the last mayor's warden's meeting that we add 3 more members to the committee to see if we can't get something to happen here. So we now added representatives from Westville and Trenton and Silverman, and we still need to make something happen. So I have a phone call coming on Friday. I just got kind of desperate at the end of it, and said we have to do something. So this guy's name is Robert Graham, and he may have met with us here one time as a group. A big group came from the health authority one time, but anyway, he's in charge of mental health for the Northern Region, and you know, once I talk to him, I'm going to try and organize a conference or a meeting with, not just with our municipal representatives, but with our MP and the MLAs. Everybody's saying we need to do something, but I've got families just crying out to me for something to happen. There's one right in my own area down over there that lost their son about 6 months ago. They're just at their wits' end, and they can't understand why something can't be done to improve the situation. And so I just wanted the council to know, I guess, that this is being looked at, it is being worked on by the American Warden Group, and we're at the point now where it's time for not just talk, it's time that we do something. And so we're going to need everybody's support, I guess, when it comes right down to it. But something has to happen better to go in with your loved one into the Aberdeen, and I'm not putting the Aberdeen down, but I mean, you know, the waits there could be 8-10 hours. If you've got somebody in really serious condition in terms of mental health, the cases where they're simply don't know. And we have to do better. So I just bring it tonight to council to let you know that we are working on it. We have to have concerted effort from everybody to do more than stuff. That's all I want to bring tonight. It's just that we're on it, and hopefully we can make something happen. Thank you.
That's good news, sir. Board Parker. Is there anything else? Hearing none. Yeah, motion. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Count aye. Motion carried. Next on the agenda is planning services. CAO. Lead us on this one?
Yeah, this was added to the agenda. It's actually added to the agenda at the request of Councillor Dave Parker. And the conversation, I guess, was really around development officer services that are currently provided by Jeffrey Turnbull through the town of New Glasgow. As you'll remember, back in March when we had our planning session, we had indicated this fiscal year that we would probably be moving towards our own staff member or looking at that. Just to put kind of in context, last week we got the approval on subdivision number 64. It came through. So we're June. Last year in 2020, we had 69 for the entire year. So the volume of work there has greatly increased this year for whatever reason. Could be COVID, could be a number of different things, people creating new lots and subdivisions. So we have over the last few weeks, we've met with town of Pictou to talk about opportunities, if there is opportunities for potentially shared development services. One option. Logan has had some discussions with, I guess we'll put them as consultants. At this point, looking at a number of different options, but also just kind of looking at an assessment of where we're at in terms of development and what our future needs would be, whether or not that supports full-time position, things of that nature. And so we are looking at a myriad of options. I think over the last couple of weeks, just with new director of public works and working with Jeff Turnbull on ways that we can just improve the whole process on current situation until we bridge to whatever it is. So that's kind of our update. I guess Logan wants to add anything. Councillor Dave Parker has anything to add?
Yeah, thank you, Brian. I can speak a little bit more if it's to the pleasure of the council. And thanks for the outline, Brian. That's all accurate. We have been looking into a variety of options for planning services, and we certainly have received feedback both from Mr. Turnbull with the town of New Glasgow and also through Councillor Parker to ourselves as well, that Mr. Turnbull is quite heavily loaded right now, particularly from applications from the town of New Glasgow itself. So we've approached this with a bit of a two-prong approach. The first is with regards to the planning and development officer services themselves. And for those who don't know, when I was working in the consulting world, I knew Jeff and had a relationship with him, working on a number of files. So Jeff and I have met on a number of projects. We have a weekly meeting now, typically Thursdays at 9:30, just to run through any planning requirements that we have with him, and that any input that he needs from us, from the Public Works and Development Department. And that's been, going well with advancing a variety of initiatives. We also met recently with regards to a specific subdivision development in Caribou Island with the local surveyor, legal surveyor who's completing services for his client there. Jeff was able to speak to a number of the subdivision aspects, and I was able to speak to a number of our bylaw and also some subdivision aspects as well. And I know Mr. Turnbull was quite pleased. He provided me feedback that he was quite pleased with that. So my hope is that at least in the short term, I can assist him in lightening his load and providing input that can help advance our files more efficiently. So that's the first thing in terms of relieving Mr. Turnbull of the weight of some of his duties right now, just by taking a proactive approach in terms of following through with a number of these items with him. With regards to the search for a development officer and the possibility of posting an ad or looking at what needs we have for a development officer, we reached out to a consulting company who I've worked with in the past, again in the private sector, who agreed to review our files, including our permits for the past year, as well as some other documents we were able to provide free of charge, just as an exercise in terms of giving us an idea of a possible course of action for how we might approach planning services, and furthermore feeding the idea of whether we need, option A, a full-time development officer dedicated solely to the municipality, B, depending on our workload, the possibility of hiring or taking on a development officer at some sort of a percentage, possibly shared with other municipal units or shared with other duties for the municipality. And then option C being the possibility of outsourcing the development officer role, aspects of the role on a needs basis to a private sector consulting company. So we did receive feedback. We had a meeting with that consulting company last week. They were able to provide feedback, and this will play into our land use bylaw development as well. So now we're at the process of reviewing what those people have sent to us, and trying to get an idea of what our needs really are, and so we can plan a way forward. So I look forward in the next couple of weeks to, after our meeting last week, to narrowing the focus to our needs and providing some recommendations to council on how we might proceed.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. McDonald. Councilor Dickmore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I discovered this situation purely by accident. I was talking to a land surveyor, and I am getting this property subdivided. He informed me that Mr. Turnbull is backed up quite badly. And he explained it to me. Now, it's a good problem to have in the sense that it means we're growing. Okay, but it's still a problem. Okay. I guess the question I have, and I certainly want to indicate Mr. McDowell was aware of the situation and was already taking some steps to put potential solutions in place. This problem is likely to get worse before it gets better. We're just having the summer today. Additionally, the time of the year when most development plans come in. I guess my concern is that how quickly can we relieve the pressure on Mr. Turnbull and speed up the process? Because often the stuff they're working on is time sensitive. People have deadlines that have to meet and so on. And it's not Mr. Turnbull's fault. It's the fault of a growing economy. If there is any blame. My question, Mr. McDowell, Mr. Cullen, is how soon can we put at least a temporary solution in about Mr. Turnbull? That could be contracting it out to company XYZ, or a period of 3 months, let's say. Not all of it, but enough to take the pressure off Mr. Turnbull. So that's my question. How soon can we put temporary relief measures in place while we deal with the longer term aspects?
Right. Thank you, Councillor Parker. And I will add that just as a factor that will play into this and the loading that say Mr. Turnbull or whoever our development officer is, a factor that's going to play into that will also be the implementation of any new land use bylaw that we have, which would necessitate development work, such as the preparation of the land use bylaw itself, which would be a multi-year process and heavily and intensive. And also, when that process is completed, we can expect for a need for additional review. For example, in the town of New Glasgow, they have zoning areas which require as of right development review, development agreement review, and approvals. And many other jurisdictions have site plan approvals. So the problem is going to get worse in terms of workload as we develop our land use bylaw. So I will offer that as a comment as well, to the effect of, we know that we're going to have a larger workload coming up. So I would say that we are at a point that I'm currently researching the requirements for planning staff, planning officer credentials, development officer credentials, that is. And I would say that we, if it's the council's pleasure, we could be, we could post an ad. We can also provide support in the form that we have been providing by way of our weekly meetings with Mr. Turnbull and assistance on tricky or complicated, say, subdivision applications coming through. I think we can lighten the load organically that way, just by keeping the line of communication open and helping him to advance those files and responding quickly where we're able to. And my hope is that will, and it seems to have already helped the process. But I would say that as the problem gets worse and persists, and as the need persists, we could be looking at posting an ad or bringing somebody on in that type of a role within the coming a short number of months. That's sort of the timeline that I'm looking at right now, in the order of a couple of months, and obviously having to speak with the finance department as well, and of course Brian and yourselves, council. So I hope that answers the question. I would say that we're still reviewing the requirements right now before we're able to make recommendations for final decision. But I would say that that review and is ongoing, and the recommendations will be forthcoming.
Thank you. Just on that, Brian, we discussed this at our other sessions, because the Nova Scotia governments don't make this at minimum planning. So we talked about hard disposition since the law. Just wondering, do they put an extension on for that minimum planning? Because I thought it was 2 years a year ago.
Yeah, it's still, I believe it's 2 years out.
It's still 2 years up.
Yeah. It just on kind of a process that was interesting. We had a complaint on Friday around subdivision, and the subdivision file was turned around in 2 weeks. 15 days from start to finish, and we received a complaint that to the effect that wasn't good enough. The subdivision process has specific legislative timeframes, and once the second step in the subdivision process is actually subdivision is sent out to other agencies, so that's provincial agencies and stuff, and they have 90 days to actually reply. And we turned it around in 2 weeks. So we're getting it both ways here, right? And one of the other complicating factors on a lot of this stuff is there is at present a backlog within the land registry system. So typically you would see deeds filed in our records are updated traditionally within 2 weeks. What they're seeing now, it's 6 weeks where those records are being processed. So it all flows through. So it's not only the pressures that are here, the pressures at other levels as well. So.
And if I may as well, Brian, with regards to the question of the need to implement these minimum planning standards within a certain time frame, we have been informed by the consultant with whom we've spoken, who have worked on a number of files everywhere from the municipality of the County of Cumberland to Queens County, and many other municipalities throughout the province, as well as Prince Edward Island, that knowing that having basically an implementation plan of how we're going to approach going through the process of preparing these changes and these minimum planning standards is sufficient for compliance with the directive to put together those planning standards. So assuming that the process remains, moving forward, I wouldn't say that we'll have any problems with that. And we will be looking, I would expect that we would be looking to post an RFP for assistance, consulting, service assistance for those minimum planning standards, also likely within the next couple of months.
Councilor Pictou.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. One thing that I noticed tonight was that if you looked at our e-transfer tax, it's triple the highest amount that we've had on the chart that we're given each month. It's tripled, and it's almost $150,000. So we know that we're growing, and it's not just the sales sector or purchase sector of the market. It's also people are building as well, and this is something that we have talked about for a while. So I just wanted to say that I'm really glad that we had this discussion this evening. So thank you, Councillor Park, for putting it on the agenda. And I also just wanted to say thank you to Ms. McDowell tonight for providing us with some great information. It's nice to have that voice back in process. So thank you.
That's my pleasure, and I promise not to speak as much at the next ongoing meetings.
Okay. Nothing further, we'll move on. Collapse of the portion found in Nova Scotia. Councilor Neighbor.
Yeah, I want to change the title of collapse to crisis. Crisis? It's not actually collapse, well, it is slowly collapsing, but that's not what doesn't fit my definition of collapse. As we're well aware of two things, there's no longer a market for what we would call pulpwood, low-grade off-species. It's very limited market. The only market is in Port Oxford, and it's unable to take a percentage of what could be produced. That's the first step. The other thing that's been happening now for over years has been record prices for softwood lumber. 3 times higher than they'd ever been before. Okay. A year and a half ago, 1,000 board feet of spruce fir lumber was going in the range of $450 to $500. That's American dollars. It peaked about a month and a half ago now, it's somewhere around 1,650 American dollars. It's come back some lately. And anyone that's tried to buy lumber, spruce fir lumber in particular, knows all about this. That should be a real good thing for people that are in the forest industry, but it has not been. You see the spectacle now, one of the mills advertising for land under it. Okay? Woodland owner wouldn't sell this companies. That same company is offering the same price as they offered in 1998, 23 years ago. All of your costs, especially if you're a contractor, have not remained stationary. Not up. Okay? And I know a group of contractors went to that company and basically said to them, you know, when are you going to share the wealth? Well, we'd like to, but, and they didn't offer to share any of the wealth. They claimed they're saving their money to build a new water. And that may be perfectly true. I spoke recently to the individuals that run the hemlock mills on the river. They are offering 50% more than they did a year ago percentage for wood delivered into the yard. My neighbor had a hemlock harvest done this winter. He was very disappointed, not necessarily the price, but he found that the contractor simply went up to the first limbs, left the rest of the tree in the woods. Okay, because there's no market for hemlock pulp. Okay, it's not necessarily windmills all the way around. The hemlock mill in West River, Southwest River, it's also increased the price of their lumber by about 50%, and yet they're still well under what spruce and fir costs. Okay, I noted a wonderful story on the CBC website. Sexton Lumber in Woolfield, Newfoundland. They are the largest lumber producer in Newfoundland. Okay. Last Thursday, they called all their employees in, and in their paycheck, they found a $10,000 bonus each. They gave $2 million back to their employees and their in-woods contractors. Okay. A wonderful gesture. Okay. But it does show how much money is floating around in the forest industry. And yet, we have a situation where the 7 or 8 mills that buy significant quantities of spruce or fir, sedwood, or logs, have only, and just within the last month or so, have only just marginally increased their prices for clear wood. At a time when their profits have gone up 200%, 300%, they're offering about a 3% increase. You know, there's something wrong in our forest economy in Nova Scotia. Now, we had a similar situation, not nearly as dramatic. It started in 1992 with Hurricane Andrew, which caused a lot of damage in Florida, increased the demand for lumber. And for almost a decade, lumber prices were doing this. And it flowed almost immediately, very quickly, to the producers, the loggers, and to the landowners. Another interesting example in Alberta, which is a major producer of spruce lumber, the prices that are received this week, wholesale prices, determine the stumpage for next week. So 1 week delay. Okay, their stumpage rates are 5, 6, or 7 times what we're getting. There's something wrong. Okay, and my request here this evening is we can't solve it. Is to write a letter to the Minister of Finance and Forestry and to the Premier, asking them to investigate the economic dynamics of the spruce fir, and that's the biggest part of our industry, of the spruce fir forest industry in Nova Scotia. It's not working. There's collusion, in my opinion. There's collusion to keep the prices low at a time when they're making very, very good profits. And then that means that the loggers in particular and the truckers, the same rate that they got years ago. And they can't survive. They're going broke. Go out and say, well, these should be good times. They're not good times, but my equipment up to fail, well, their business. That's what I mean by a price shrinking every month. The hemlock mill that I talked about in Southwest River can only operate at about half capacity. They can't get enough logs. Now, the root cause of that goes back to there not being a market for the the low grade pulp, and there being fewer contractors in the woods. Fewer contractors in the woods, it's less volume. And they're not the only ones. I understand the one in Barnes River are looking hard for logs. Don't have enough logs to operate, and certainly the hardwood plant in Westville plant itself the same boat. So we are in crisis. It's a slowly evolving crisis. It would have been a whole lot worse if we did not have this increase in price for spruce for lumber. Okay, that's helped alleviate maybe to hide some of the pain. But at a time when you should be expecting to see an increase in your return, both for the loggers, the truckers, and the landowners, it's not there. Why isn't it? That's what I'm asking the Minister of Land and Forest and Premier to investigate. Why is there not? Why are the normal market forces, why are they not working? And I can propose hypotheses why they're not working. They should investigate that. And that's what I'm asking. I'm making a motion, send a letter to the Minister of Lands and Forestry and the Premier, ask them to investigate the failure of market forces in the spruce fir lumber sector. And I ask for a second.
Seconded, Andy.
Moved and seconded. Any question? Councilor McKee.
Would it be better, I was thinking, is the distribution of wealth is really what it is, right? Because they're asking, because it's the big guys making the money and it's not trickling down to the landowners that have been waiting for a good price to have a return on their investment. And it's just, to me, that's not it. But it's also corporations that are privately owned. And although I support, I don't know how, I don't know how the province can go about doing that, just solving that within an industry with private corporations. But maybe you can shed some light on that for me, Councilor Barton. Because I agree, if something needs to be done, it's not right what's happening, but I don't know how you fix that.
If I may, Mr. Chair, the province is not without levers. For example, 30% of our harvest does come off Crown land. They have the ability, obviously, to set stumpage rates on Crown land, and if they set a stumpage rate that's much higher, that would at least set a pattern. I'm not a big fan of interfering in free markets as long as they're free. The problem is it's not free. You have an oligopoly, 7 or 8 mills, and they all work through the Forest Products Association of Nova Scotia. They all have their own governing body, we'll say. And there's clearly now it's starting to crack a little bit last month or so. Okay, it's creeping up a bit. But the first year plus of this pandemic, it's not pandemic, it's partly related to the pandemic, but of this price increase, they simply kept all the profit for themselves. Now I appreciate those mills saw a significant drop in the value of their chips. It's a good sell. The one I saw for biomass was somewhat at a loss. So there has to be some adjustment there. Okay, but there was far, far more than what you adjust for there. But the province does have some levers. Okay, they also, they set forth policy on some private lands, and industry receiving insect assistance. So like I say, they do have some levers. I'm not saying they should legislate, but there needs to be a nudge. You say, hey, now 25 years ago, when we had the last run up in lumber prices, and lumber prices are traditionally cyclical, the market worked, and it worked well. And we had about twice as many mills operating, good sized mills, and there was more competition. Well, that may be a factor. I don't know. What I'm asking is they investigate a lot of ways to pressure a fairer distribution of current pricing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not a big fan of regulation. I don't know what regulators is going to do for us. I think we'd be better off getting educated on the whole issue and perhaps having someone do a presentation here at council as opposed to writing a letter, because most times that letter the government comes back is very general discussion. So I don't really see the benefit in writing a letter. I think we need more than that. So I think it's wrong.
Else, Councilor Boyle?
Yeah, I'm just of the opposite opinion. I think that we like we can shine any, any misfortune that's going on, anyone, especially the new owners or the harvesters or whatever. If there's something that we can do, bring it to their attention. It's only a letter.
Or board member?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't see any harm in writing a letter. It brings it to, just by us talking about it here, brings it to the fore. And it does need to have some light shed on it for sure. I, like others, am not a big fan of the government interference in business, but the business isn't operating properly to the benefit of all, then a light needs to be shed on that. But I think there's also a big benefit right now to bringing it to the public's attention. And that's because the election figure out more. The government listening much more closely. You'll notice them reacting to various things, almost in a week. They're responding to things that come out and changing things. So it's the same thing happened when the boat mill was running. The mill was making really good money for the last couple of years, and the people in the woods kept saying, we're getting the same as we got 10 years ago. We're harvesting and crushing and everything. So, it's not just the sawmill, it's the same was happening. It is. If you think you can get away with it, you're going to. So by shedding a little bit of light on it, hopefully it'll make those companies aware that they are being watched, and maybe that treat the rest of the people need to do a little more. Thank you.
Okay. Call for a vote. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Caroline, nay. One nay, Councilor one. Motion carried. Okay, next is the intersection safety, Highway Route 245 and Trunk 4, South River. Go ahead, Councilor.
Yes, Mr. Chair. I've had a number of residents bring to my attention the safety factor at this particular intersection. There have been accidents there in the past. I don't recall any fatal accidents, but perhaps that's just something that could happen anytime. It's a busy intersection, and I think that some changes need to be made to increase the safety level at the intersection. Some suggestions that I've heard is that perhaps an amber flashing light overhead to caution all of those that come into that intersection. There's also concern about turning right, heading up towards Sutherland's River as you leave the 245. Let's say people come make that right-hand turn, and there really isn't much of a lane, an entry lane for them. You're right up there. I think this is an intersection that we should be concerned about, and that we should be bringing this to the attention of Great Chisholm. Perhaps some type of an analysis should be done and a report given back to us in this regard. Yes, I'd like to move that we write a letter to Great Chisholm indicating our concern of safety at this intersection, and ask that a study be done and the results be shared with the municipal council.
I'll second it.
Second. Questions? Anyone?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just for clarification on the agendas, Highway 247.
Yeah, it's 245.
So that should be 245.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Should be Route 245. It is a bad intersection, especially if you come down Thornton Road and you go turn left to go up to, so up to the school. It's a blind press when you look to your right. And no doubt it's the same when you come out of 245, so it should be looked at as something to see what could be done. Councilor Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, others that I was asking for a study that you see something concrete about others that certainly.
No more questions? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Come on, nay. Motion carried. Next is the street light, District 3 intersection, Williams Way and Caribou Road.
I make a motion that we approve this intersection light. It's within the allotment of streetlights for District 3. This is a request that I got from a resident of Williams Way that worked by speaking for a few residents. So I thought it was important, and it's not a twisty road up there. I don't know if anybody goes up to see the lighthouse ever, but it's always a busy road up there. And just to have that extra bit of safety there for the residents, I think is a good thing. So I'll make that motion.
Second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Come on, nay. Motion carried. This is the East River Valley Fire Department, Local Levy Council. Council Water.
Mr. Chair. I think it's been very common the past couple of weeks since our council voted to go ahead with proposal to improve fire payments from respective repairs and start with what we call equalization payments for unfunded fire departments. It's prompted a number of fire departments to go ahead and start writing letters on their behalf to residents, and in this case, it's really found a second to the council. And I agree with the ordinance of their respective letter. I think it just expresses their concern with the disappointment and frustration felt by fire departments, and secondly, the concern by council to increase the rates. The board keeps insisting that it came from the fire chiefs to insist the levies, and I can't dispute that. So I've gone through all the minutes of the liaison committee since 2018. And the only time I see that mentioned was at one meeting in March of this year, where it was a suggestion, wasn't acted on by that committee. And in fact, at that same meeting, the warden suggested that it still look at the 1 cent levy for our taxes. Again, a suggestion, nothing seemed to follow through on the suggestion, it's just something to say on the meeting. There's much discussion that this has been worked over the last 18 months, but we've been on COVID lockdown for most of that time. No chance to meet openly with fire chiefs, fire departments, or our own residents. There was a meeting with the fire chiefs that was held in April. I did specifically ask to go to that meeting, was told it's a no. That in front of the councils said we were reversely kept out, it was just to go to fire chiefs. So real concern with what happened at that meeting, because obviously some very important documentation of that meeting. And when I asked for the minutes for the meeting, presented that I think Brian has some notes, but there's no minutes of the meeting. I can't believe the meeting that possibly be part of that had such important discussion taking place. Never been minutes, but we have no way to check to see where this proposal came from that fire levy should be increased. The things that came back to the fire department or to the liaison meeting in May was to increase the underfunded to 85,000, but now that stands at 90,000 again. I'm not sure where that 90,000 came from. And we want to increase the fire levy, of course, the whole fire department's 20 cents, and then the fire levy payments are capped at 20 and 1 for 3 years. You referred to a letter we get the next day on policy. Again, I waited to see what that letter would do. It was nothing more than we've actually discussed that tonight. It came from our CAO, which usually if we have a lawyer checking in as an issue for us, we usually get back to the lawyer, but we didn't have a lawyer's letter on it. Again, it's just something different that's being done in this case. So currently we see fire on our rate tax bills. And in my case, it's fire and it's in harbor. So how are the residents of these affected areas going to see this increase explained on the bill? For example, East River Valley, for example, if you see East River Valley, would that be interpreted as a fire levy for East River Valley? Does that break our policy concerning increasing fire rates? I think there's a lot of confusion over that out there. And again, the email we received the day after the response didn't clarify this issue at all. My understanding from the study is better replacing fire halls and satellite stations to accommodate the necessary requirements, not closing the fire halls, not shutting down fire halls altogether. I believe this information is taken in context that can never be able to sit through a thorough explanation of this study, leaves much up to your own interpretation. I think the biggest surprise I got from the response was there's an opt-out option for fire departments. This makes a huge difference, and I'm delighted that you have a process option. I just can't believe we didn't discuss this opt-out clause in council, and I don't know how we're going to get the policy in place to follow through on it, but I'm glad to see that the opt-out option is there, and I'm certainly the impression that it's going to be done for one fire hall, one fire department, which is going to be for all of them. So I'm just not really sure what road we're heading in. I was really confused on the response to that issue of that. And I'm getting questions on it again, and I can't answer them because, like I said, this opt-out clause was something new. I think it's great, but again, I don't know what road we're on yet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think the road we're driving down is pretty clear. Our council made a decision 2 weeks ago to go with a proposal from one of the fire departments that seemed to be fair, and that's where we're going. No question on that. I have, as I repeated in that letter, and repeated through all the meetings that I've been at with the fire chiefs or any fire department. I have a lot of respect for firefighters and the great job they do in our communities, but our role as council is different than that. Our role is to do with financing. Our role is to do with the coordination and working together with fire departments and the administrative end. The firefighters do a wonderful job on their end of it, but we have a fiduciary responsibility to make sure that there's fairness in this county and that all of our fire departments are adequately funded. So I attempt to answer every letter I get from fire departments as best I can. I'm not perfect, I know that, and not everything may be right bang on, but I try to, their main points seem to be two. One was how the other fire departments would be looking upon them, and that possibly when it came time for emergency, could they expect the same degree of help that they had before from mutual aid? And I stated very clearly there that I could never see any fire department or any fireman, fire lady, fire person, I should say, I guess, in this county, ever making a decision. And I don't think I'll do as good here as everybody elsewhere because of how somebody voted or what somebody supported or didn't support. I know that all our firemen and firewomen will do 100% no matter where the fire is at. So on that point, which was one of their main points, how we're going to be seen upon by the other departments in helping us. To me, there was no doubt there. On the idea of did we break a policy when we passed the motion 2 weeks ago, I asked our CAO the next day, I said, if we broke a policy, I want to know what it was, and get it cleared up. I said, we need to clear this up now if we broke a policy, and we can ask the CAO again tonight. And I was asked to send a letter to clarify it, and I think it did clarify that we did not break a policy that night. The council has the right to change those levies. If the fire department wants to change their levy, there's a certain rules they have to go through, or a certain format they have to go through. but council can change those letters. So that's not breaking policy, so I made that very clear to them in the letter. And their other main concern was how the community would look upon them because their fire rates are going up. Well, it was right here in this room that the fire chief for Scottsburn said very clearly that coming out of the association meeting was that before we help any department, they have to put their rates up to what the top rates are in the county. That did not come from the council sitting around the table, it came from the fire chief of Scottsburn, and that was brought up and it was considered by the committee, and there was no resistance to that idea. That seemed fair, that if you're going to be helped, then you shouldn't be charging less than what your neighbor is helping you. So like I said in the letter, that seemed to be a fair way to do things. So from there on, in all the proposals that were developed, that became sort of, but the one thing I might not have said right in there, and Council was referring to that as an opt-out clause. In my mind, if somebody doesn't want to be helped, why would we help them? I mean, if anybody in that area looks at it and says, well, okay, we'll do without the help, they would have to raise their rate in say, Blue Mountain or East River Valley or whatever, almost double in order to equal the same amount of money that they're going to get out of this proposal. And I can't see anybody in those areas want to do that. So to my mind, if you don't want help, then you won't get help. But I think the CAO differs on that. I'll let him clarify it. I may have spoken out of place on that one. But to me, it's common sense. If somebody is, even in my community, says they don't want help, well, we're not going to help them. But if that may not be accurate, that part there of the opting out, it was just common sense to me that somebody doesn't want to put their rates up. And why would we put them up? But I think if council had its way, the council was at the table, we wouldn't have asked for the rate to be increased. That came to the fire chiefs. And we were asked to listen to the fire chiefs. And we did on that occasion, we did on several other occasions. There was when we met in Alma the first time, the first time everything went haywire, but because of the fire and non-stroke, I think that the second time we were at, the main concern was that we were going to take the growth each year, and that's what's causing the gulf to get wider and wider between the haves and have-nots, and put that growth into a fund that in 3 years' time would be what would be used to try and cause an equalization rather than have to continue to take it at whatever proposal we had. But, the fire chiefs were very concerned in that meeting, everything else they could live with, but they couldn't live with taking that growth. So we dropped that. The next meeting, we said, okay, we'll take that out of the picture. And we took some other things out of the picture. But at the end of the day, we had to do something. And I am more than willing, I've already booked to go speak to one fire department, any fire department in this county. I'm more than willing as board to go there, speak to the people at the fire department, including the firefighters, the fire chiefs, whoever, and ratepayers, and explain why we did this and why we're trying to equalize it. There's no big hidden agenda here, but I am going to ask the CAO to speak to two issues. One is the district rate policy, and the second one is do they have to accept help? Call it off, they probably want to do they, as I may have misspoken on that one, but like I say, I try to do the best I can to return letters to everybody who writes them to me. And do I make some mistakes? Probably, but I try to do the best I can. But I would ask Mr. Chair if you would ask the CEO to respond to those.
So if you wouldn't mind, Ron?
Sure, so I'll do them in reverse order. The opt-out clause, I think, on that one, not to say you can't do it, and the conversation I had with the board last week is it make it very difficult to administer if you allow people in and out, right? Like to me, it is, you're either all in or you're all out. If you have one out, I don't know how you would ever come up with the rules around that would really make it easy for it to be administered. I just think it would be administratively a nightmare, but not saying you couldn't opt out. I just think administratively, it would be very difficult because the premise of it is, the notion was equalization, so, and bringing them up to the 90,000, so if they don't raise their rates, and you have monies that you just don't balance, right? So I just don't know how you practically do it, but not to say you couldn't do it. I guess when it just would give us nightmares to try and figure that part out, and make people understand. So I think that just probably a philosophical difference between administrative and political type thing. We'll talk about that. On the issue of policy, we don't have an equalization policy. There's nothing there today that says we can even do this. So that's part of the notion, is that we developed the rules around the equalization program based on the concept that was put forward by the Abercrombie Fire Department at the 5%. There seems to be the notion that the fire department's actually set the levy. And that's not true. If that was true, we wouldn't pass a resolution every year. So even our policy says the rates remain in effect from 2017-18 year. We still pass a resolution every year to set those rates. So, so there really is no deviation from that policy. That policy was put in place to govern if the department felt there was a need to increase the rules, and it was based on a scenario where two departments raised their rates. That went to a ratepayers meeting, and I think it was passed at that ratepayers meeting, but then probably 2/3 of their service areas aren't covered by those council districts because the fire department boundaries do not follow electoral boundaries. They're all over the place. You have 18 fire departments and 12 council. So they don't follow those boundaries.
Council one.
Just to the policy, I think it's a perception of the bill. I think that's the problem we're having with some of the discussion. We have never had an issue before where the fire rate that shows up in your tax bill wasn't the rate that was recommended by the fire department. And we're going ahead and adding 4 cents in some of these tax rates, and the fire department has to take ownership for it. And in reality, it's not. It's something that council is imposing on it, which, as you say, is policy, but it's a perception of what we've always done and not following through on it. I think that's what's very confusing. So we don't see any probably going forward, we're changing our bill on our tax bills. So, secondly, it's a limited situation with that discussion on the fire chiefs supporting the rate being raised to 20 cents for all of them. If the meeting that was discussed, that was the direction of the meeting, very little was put into the minutes concerning that. It was one suggestion. I came at that time. That's all that shows up in the minutes, if that's where it was. If it was at the chiefs meetings that were held privately and without minutes being taken, then I can't speak to that. I have no information to go back to see just what exactly did happen at those meetings. And that's a really big concern. So now, is there going to be an opt-out possibility for the departments, or is that a mistake in your part? You have to apologize to them for that mistake in response to them.
If I made a mistake, I have no problem apologizing. But, you know, the gist still remains the same here. We're trying to help these small departments. Where the money comes from, we come to the argument. They come from these departments to those departments to the council or whatever. This should be a good thing in the East River Valley. It should be a good thing in Blue Mountain, Pictou Landing, Garnet River, and the East River St. Mary's. We're giving those departments more equipment and more dollars to work with, and that should make it safer for those members of the fire department. That's what we have to remember here. I would have a hard job believing that anybody in Blue Mountain or Pictou Landing River is going to be terribly upset about their tax rate, because they know that their fire department not only going to be a lot safer for their volunteers, but it's also going to be better able to protect their homes and their families. At the end of the day, that's really what counts here. We can go all over the minutes and see who said what and what not, but at the end of the day, the fire department did want that to be brought up, and it seemed fair. Who said it at what meeting? It was brought up here by the fire chiefs, whether it's recorded or not. That seems to me like, is that the major issue here, whether it's recorded in the minutes, or is the major issue that the fire departments asked for that? If that was insisted upon, that night, whether it's recorded or not, it was insisted upon, and the other members of the fire liaison committee were here. So it seemed reasonable. There wasn't any great debate over that night from the councillors, because it seemed like a reasonable request. We can argue all we want back and forth over who said what, when, and where. At the end of the day, let's remember, we're helping those small fire departments. Yes, we're taking a little from some of the ones that have more, but that's a principle across Canada. We've been the best at here for a lot of years in Nova Scotia. We receive equalization payments because we don't have as many advantages as some of the big provinces. So, you know, that's the long held government policy at all levels is equalization. We actually benefit some here in this municipality. So the provincial equalization, not a lot, I don't think, but we do benefit some. Sometimes it's our role as council, I think, to try and level the playing field a little. Is anybody going to like it? No, nobody likes it if they lose a little bit of money. And I'm saying a little bit in proportion of the total. But it's our job, I think, as a council to try and make sure the fire department has enough money to run safely. And if we're already putting enough money into the pot, which I believe we are, then it's a matter of distribution, not a matter that we don't have enough money. A matter of distribution of that money. And this is a very small change, really. But we did pass the motion. Council passed the motion. Like I say, if I made a mistake in the letter, and I'm sure I'll make some more in the future. I have no problem apologizing for that. If our administration says it would be too difficult to administer, the normal principle to me is generally if somebody doesn't want help, I don't help them. But in this case, because of the administration needing to have a level playing field, I understand that. But I have no problem apologizing to them for if I misled them.
Mr. Chair, Andy here.
Councillor Thompson?
Thank you. I don't want to relitigate last meeting, and that's what we just did for the last 15 minutes. The woman that wrote the letter, she's looking for some clarity, and she's not getting it from anybody. Like she needs somebody from our council, and it should come from the head of our council, to write a letter. Write a letter to those residents. That's all she was asking for. She wasn't asking to justification. She understands the issue. Anyways, in the next month we're gonna twist ourselves into a pretzel to hold an 81-cent tax rate, but and pat ourselves on the back. Anyway, she needs clarity, and the letter she wrote was fair. It wasn't critical of the council. She needs clarity, and she never got it tonight. She needs clarity. So there's unintended consequences with our decisions we make, and she outlined all of them because she lives in that community. Anyhow, thank you.
Okay. Is there anything further? Councillor Walls?
Yeah, to me, I don't know what democracy is when you have an issue and majority goes one way or the other. They win it or they lose it. It's the majority and that's it. That's democracy. We voted, we threw around and the majority went to take the proposal and go with it, which, there should be no more after that. That should have been. I mean, but there's other things too going on. I think because you get some people, and it's natural, I guess, in life that you're going to find some police, and there is police in the fire departments are great people, and most of them, and the majority of them, want to just do their job. Go fight fires, do their training, do the thing. They don't want all this crap going on. But you get 2 or 3 that wants to bully everybody else and quote and spread wrong information. Now, I turned around and talked to a department today that was down on us and was talking to the chief, and he even he said, we're on our way for amalgamation again. He said, they're going to try and get amalgamation in. No, that's not happening. Also, he figured that the money that they were taking was going to be one pot, and then once they got all this money that went, then it was divided amongst each 5 departments. I said, no, that's not the way it goes. I said, it's going to be, this money from emergency money, we take these guys up to the 90,000, we're going to take them up, the rest goes in. I said, the other departments are worth the thing, just as much as if they wanted. But again, I think what's happening, and it's too bad it is again, most fire departments are out there, they just want to do what they do their training, do their job, fight fires and train and get along. But you've got 2 or 3 that just want to stir the pot and make things bad and bully. And I think this is wrong and it's got to stop. Thank you.
Councilor Elder.
The conversation we're speaking about is a letter that was sent back from the East River Valley, and the board responded to it, but the people who are listening tonight have no clue what was going on in that letter. So I read that letter 8 times, and I think what the board answered is good, and it covered all the points. But there's 7 sides to this, and I'd really like to lay it to rest. So I'm going to tell you what I get out of that letter. That letter opened with, speaking as both members of the fire department and the ratepayers and the members of our communities, concerned about the impact and the fallout from council's decision. It stated, disappointment and frustration felt by the departments having funds diverted will result in animosity that will jeopardize required levels of cooperation and support to speak effectively at fire calls, and mutual aid is based on goodwill and commitment to share resources and support calls outside the jurisdictions. With that stated in this letter, one would believe that this would still happen when it was needed. And all those departments would support one another and not pit departments, as stated in the letter, against each other. My feedback since this council voted has been tremendous. I've heard everything. I've heard it from the public, I've heard it from the volunteers, I've heard it from the fire department. I've even been accused of reading the warden's notes. These are my notes and my words and my opinion, and I think we've done a good job, and I'm proud to be on that fire liaison committee. And the letter explaining that the increase in the levy and the distribution of the funds is public knowledge. It should be, and it should have been 30 years ago. This has been going since ever, and I feel that the public needs to know every detail about that fire levy that we can tell them. And I've been telling the people, and when I explain it out, and I've been getting calls from all districts, not just my own, everybody, and I've been explaining it. And when I explain it, it's like, oh, okay, I get it. And then it's laid to rest. The feedback is based on the fundraising is a concern. And when I was asked the question, well, the fire departments are not willing to support and help their own. Will the generosity of the public still be available to support fire departments? It goes both ways. You have to give to gain, and if the fire departments can't support their own, will the public still support fire departments? I'm highly concerned about that statement. A key aspect of the transparent of communication written in that letter is engaging our community. And the question I was asked many times is, why is the public not alerted to all fire hall meetings? They should be involved and active in those those meetings and know what's going on from day one and always. And yes, the fire department did have a direct hand. There was a fire liaison committee in place, and the chiefs that were on there represented the fire chiefs. And it was their jobs to take that information back to their volunteers. Whether they relayed it, all of it, and I stated it before, or half of it, or they only told the positive or the negative, it didn't help any. Everybody had to know all of it, and there was gaps there, and the more I speak to people, the more I learned that the gaps were there. And once I explained, or the questions were asked and I answered, the people were happy with it. They were like, oh, I get it. And again, the department's struggling, and there are departments struggling are needed, and we have to keep them. And if you feel they are vital, which is stated in that letter, why would anyone take a stand in not offering their support to bring them up to the standard that they so need? We need them. Feedback I'm receiving is very strong, and the advice from people is very important. And they feel that they're okay with the distribution of funds, but they feel like they're in the dark of not knowing what's really going on in our fire departments. They're more interested in knowing what's going on in the fire departments. There's a high level of interest from the public. They're coming forward and asking questions. And I really agree that a letter should be sent directly out explaining it in the common knowledge that someone can explain it to the public so that we get them on board. And I just think that this has been voted on and we should lay it to rest. And I feel that no other department is less important than the next. And they give 100%, and everybody needs one in their district. And I could be traveling in one of those 5 districts in my vehicle and get in an accident, and I would want one of those departments to be there to help me. And that's all I have to say on the issue, and thank you.
Good. Anything else?
Mr. Chair,
Councilor Thompson.
I'd like to make a motion that council develop a communications plan for the residents in these districts that are going to receive fire levy increase. And it has to be done with the next tax bill.
Are you saying for them to go in with their tax bills, just explain the increase, that they're at 16 cents to 20 cents? Is that what you're
Yes, yes, because yes, and I'm looking for a second.
What's that?
Logistically, is it possible to put it in their tax bill because their tax bills are pre-printed?
It can't be done that way, Councilor Thompson.
Well, we got to develop a communication strategy my motion is to develop a communication strategy to explain the rate increase to these residents.
Is there a second?
Let's see.
So, is there a second? Second by Councilor Ed.
Remember last question?
Yeah, it was moved second, and just looking for second, that's why, before you speak. No, you can.
I think the warden's suggestion that he would go to the firehouse and speak on behalf of council and explain it out is the way to go. And we have to remember that we have the right to set that levy.
Yeah.
Like, it's our right to set it. And if people want to come forward and ask questions, that's fine.
Is there a seconder? Is there a seconder for this motion?
Councilor Turner seconds it.
I'd like to speak on.
Councilor Turner, what did you say?
I seconded the motion.
I was seconded by Councilor Watt.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Councilor Thompson?
We need, just going to a fire hall is not going to work. Not everybody's going to go to a fire hall. They need to be communicated with, and we got to figure that out. If we got to pull every tax number and stuff some envelopes or do something, but there's a policy put in place for a different reason that we spoke on. And that's what I go by. I disagree with the whole notion that the policy wasn't broken. But that's not, I'm not going to argue that point here tonight. We need to talk to these residents, and just by going to a fire hall with 20 people in the room, it's not going to cut it. Because the concern from that letter is that the residents are going to take it out on these people in fundraising and other ways. There's unintended consequences with this decision council made. I'm not arguing council doesn't have the right to do this, but they also have the responsibility to communicate with every ratepayer in those districts. And that's not happening right now. We're just sitting around a table talking about last week's meeting.
Councilor Dorr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have a magazine that was a magazine, the letter in the magazine, that would get more than would get everybody in the county, I guess, because I got mine today and other people have been getting them too. It's just a suggestion, but if you can't put it in the tax bill, put it in the rules and views.
I think the news and views, the next one will be November.
They won't be paying any bill this year, change.
That's what's going on this year.
Okay, so it goes on the next bill then. Okay. Well, anyway, that's too late then, so.
You gotta have that week.
But it's just a suggestion.
Councilor Wallace.
Yeah, I'm just, I'm going to be supportive, but some reason this is number one is maybe can't go on the meet on the magazine, but we do have a communication officer, and the magazine, she can put it on our website. Anybody that's interested, we can point to those at our website, and there's if we get any more questions, good, let us know. And number two, he said, how much, what's the word I'm looking for, confusion are we going to turn around and cause when we send this out and there's going to be seniors and people that look at it and think that, oh my God, they're raising their taxes, they're doing this, they're doing that, they don't even understand what it's all about. You know, I think it's just something that's going to cause more confusion that people don't need. And I think the communication officer could put this on the website, and anyone that has any concerns after that could, to get a hold of the communication officer or the council if they know what's going on.
Councilor Dave Meyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe this whole discussion is really out of order. We debated at great length, and we made a decision. It was 92 or 94 in case of another debate. It's overdone for at least 6 months. I'm not against communicating as much as you can. We have several avenues of communication. One of them is not our tax bill, because it's in a sealed envelope that's printed by computer. You can't add a whole field of discussion. I will not be supporting this motion, but to me, it's simply an attempt to relitigate and redebate something that we settled 2 weeks ago. I believe it's parliamentary procedure. Those items cannot be brought back on the agenda for at least 6 months. Let's start acting like professionals here.
I don't think we're debating the.
I do.
We're not debating that. We're debating how people are going to get that information out. And I don't think some seniors don't get their tax bill, their second tax bill, and there's going to be an increase on it. And they don't have to. They won't wonder why. They're not going to notice that it's higher. They don't notice that there's an increase. So I don't think that we're rehashing the decision was made by this council last week. And that's fine. But I guess the purpose of tonight is to get that communications out there. So, Councilor Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I won't be supporting the motion because I think it's just trying to keep them alive. I'd rather said it's still very beneficial to those communities, and in small communities, I know how small communities work. The word gets around very quickly as to what's going on in your fire department. If they know that their fire departments are going to be much better off than they were last year in terms of equipment, in terms of dollars and whatnot, that word's going to get around. Is somebody going to get terribly upset because their rate went up a little in order for that to happen? I don't think so, and I don't think it's worth the time or the money to try and expand this into a much bigger thing than what it is. I think we're wasting money, and I truly don't believe that the ratepayers are going to be terribly upset that we're giving a lot more money to their area to help them have a better fire department. I think we're making way too much out of it, and I do agree that on this particular issue, this is what we're discussing, but bringing this in on the letter and whatnot, it was a way to bring it back up to being here. Thank you.
I'm gonna close it off here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I guess my question is, if we were going to increase our tax rate from 81 cents, how would we communicate that to residents? Would we not use our website? Would we not use the media? Would we pick it up? Or would we, I don't know. I haven't been here for a tax increase. Do we send a letter? Do we have?
It's on the radio.
It's on the radio the next day. Same as this issue, right? Sending a letter is still not going to inform some people. It's thrown out. There's people that are interested, there's people that are not. And there's some people that look at their tax bills and dissect it before they pay it, and there's other people that it gets taken maybe out of their mortgage and they don't see it. So I understand that communication is very important with our residents, and I'm all for that. But I believe that if people are interested in this, I agree that maybe, like Councilor Dewar said, maybe we can have something on our website that can, FAQs or something that can help with this. If they're looking for information, I think that's very important. But as a special letter, I think we should treat it the same as we would any other increase or any other issue. I think every time that there's money spent, I can hear at council or talked about, it is of importance to taxpayers. Some just gets, this is a big issue. I understand that, but at the end of the day, I think that we stick to what we're doing, and we have a communications officer and we have a website, and that's how most people check their news anyways, is on their phone. So I will be supporting the motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to speak on this as the mover.
Councilwoman's last one, then we'll move for a vote.
I just want to clarify one thing. Check the agenda, you will see it says East River Valley Department open letter to council and one's response. That's when I brought this table. I was not rehashing the decision we made. I have some concerns about how the levy was issued through that proposal. And I had to bring that up when I did my discussion. But it was to bring that letter and the response. And that response has the opt-out clause, which was never discussed before. And that was in there. So that's why I brought it to council, because I thought we consciously discussed this issue without everyone thinking it's out of order and bringing up whole business. It was to discuss that out of East River Valley and the response that I have. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to speak on the motion as the mover.
Councilor, you are the one that made the motion, so.
Yeah. I'm just gobsmacked at the fact that people think that it's a waste of money communicating with the residents. Like it's mind-boggling. The lady that wrote that letter deserves a proper response, and our residents deserve a proper response. Right now, we're making policy on the fly. The policy should have came to council from the committee. It didn't. And that's what the trouble is here right now. And if we can't, and not everybody gets the newsletter. Not everybody gets their mail within this area. So They deserve the same attention as everybody else. I don't understand why it's a bad thing to communicate with our residents. We're quick to say that it's council's right to raise your taxes without any debate or any knowledge. We pound our chest with that recently, but we ignore policy that was developed to safeguard communities against this, and now we're just ignoring that precedent. I don't understand this. It doesn't make sense. Doing policy on the fly is a terrible thing, and we gotta communicate with these residents. They deserve this.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Nays?
Nay.
Eight nays. 8 nays for Smitham. 9 nays.
8 nays.
Well, who were the ayes?
Turner, Palmer, Thompson, and Watt.
Palmer? So 4 8.
What's that?
4 8. Yeah.
Yes. Motion defeated. Okay, we'll move on. Next is the emergency resolutions. Any emergency resolutions? Seeing none. Next is referrals to committees, to council committees, and motions and motions. Seeing none. Ask for an adjournment to go into closed session.
So moved.
Seconded.
Move to second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Count by name. Motion carried.